Greetings. I'm your host, Jason Miles, and welcome to another episode of This is Revolution Podcast for all the returning listeners, subscribers, and of course, our very valued patrons. Thank you for coming back. To those new to the channel, thank you for taking a moment to check us out. If you dig what we're doing, please hit like and, of course, subscribe. It goes a very long way into promoting the channel. A quick reminder that we will be continuing our Star Wars month here on TIR this Friday with maybe the crown jewel of the entire series, Empire Strikes Back. If you want to watch it with us, there's a couple ways. You can become a paid YouTube subscriber. That allows you access to the champagne room as well. Or you can become a patron for as little as $3 a month or $30 for the year. You can access all the champagne rooms, get patron-only features like the Crisis Papers, and get the movie night replays. Unfortunately, I cannot do the replays. I can't upload them anywhere on YouTube without it down. As well as exclusive TIR patron merch. If you don't know about making the monthly or yearly commitment, you can try it out for free. That's right. You can test drive a patron membership for free for 7 whole days. Don't dig it? That's fine. No pasa nada. Now, let's talk about why you guys are here. Mass incarceration.
We coming for you, nigga.
Literally. Just kidding. Is mass incarceration a racial issue? The opening salvo in the 1990s hood cinema classic Boys in the Hood starts the viewer with what I like to call an advertisement for the 1994 Omnibus Crime Bill. On a black screen, a white-lettered statistic reads that 1 in 4 black men are either dead or in prison by the age of 18. The movie goes on to reinforce Moynihan-era underclass ideology about the defective nature of motherless black boys. After the success of Boys in the Hood, underclass tropes in film and music became a central theme and a discussion point around violence in the inner city. It was pervasive in mainstream media. The through line in all of the Hood movies was that there was a lack of policing, coupled with lenient sentences, especially for minors, and this fatherless environment was creating a hyper-violent, incorrigible super predator. The bipartisan cry for longer sentences for drug-related offenses led to the passing of the 1994 Omnibus Crime Bill, and after a few years into these draconian carceral reforms, a new phrase would go beyond the hallowed halls of academia and find its way into the public lexicon, and that would be mass incarceration. Reforms like the 100-to-1 disparity for crack over powder cocaine, meaning that if you were caught with 1 gram of rock cocaine, crack, you would be charged as if you had 100 times the amount of powder cocaine. This seemed to be aimed directly at black youth. The enterprising cooking of powder cocaine to a hardened rock-like base would create a booming industry in areas that had been devastated by deindustrialization and global free trade. These young men were part of the go-go 80s as well, and they understood the only way out of a life of poverty was by embracing a bootstrapping entrepreneurial spirit, and crack, for many, would be a pathway to the also elusive American dream. But long prison sentences for selling or even possessing small amounts of crack sent people away for decades. Before long, many politicians and pundits saw the error of their ways. Red, blue, and purple cities understood the world wasn't safer because we were locking up more people. But who were we locking up? From an NPR interview with Keith Humphreys, Stanford professor, quote, "So jails are, cities and counties run them, and if you go into a jail, you can figure out what went wrong last night or last week. But when you go into prisons, you're really looking to the past. You're meeting people who have been sentenced 5, 10, 25 years ago, and maybe are on their 2nd or 3rd time in prison. So prisons don't change until long after crime and punishment situation has changed. And what's going on now is after, a period of very intense crime and very intense imprisonment in the 70s and 80s, that population is now aging out. And since that time, thankfully, crime has dropped a lot in the 90s and the aughts up to the present. And young people are not entering prison," unquote. Books like The New Jim Crow painted mass incarceration as a hunt for black bodies informed by nothing more than a white supremacist ideology, to round up as many black kids as possible and put them away for as long as possible. But studies have come out recently to show us that our incarceration rates in all of the United States are dropping so low that the old trope of the likelihood of a young black man to be incarcerated has now reversed, and the young black man is more likely to be a college graduate than a felon. From an article on the decline rates of mass incarceration called Turning the Tide on Mass Incarceration, quote, the black imprisonment rate has declined by nearly 50% since the country's peak imprisonment rate in 2008. And between 1999 and 2019, the black male incarceration rate dropped by 44%, and notable declines in black male incarceration rates were seen in all 50 states. For black men, the lifetime risk of incarceration declined by nearly half from 1999 to 2019, from 1 in 3 black men imprisoned in their lifetime to 1 in 5. While still unacceptably high, this reduction in incarceration rates means that black men are now more likely to graduate than go to prison, a flip from a decade ago. This change will help disrupt the cycle of incarceration and poverty for generations to come, unquote. So if racism was the engine of mass incarceration, does that mean that we've officially moved past our great original sin of racism? Or have we just found a new culprit for all of our problems to punish? To have this discussion with me, I have the TIR crew. Please welcome my homie, my dog, the man of the Mau Mau Hour. He's the Prince of Miami. He is the Pascal Robert.
Peace and greens to the chat. Peace and greens to the audience. Peace and greens, Jason Miles.
I think we have a spicy show tonight. What do you think?
Yes, yes, y'all.
And she is the voice of reason, the only voice of reason, the genderless voice of reason. Please welcome M2 Song.
Hello, hello. Thank you for not pointing out my gender as you like to do, calling me the female voice of reason.
I said you were the only, and I said it was genderless.
I appreciate that.
So I don't need you coming for me this early in the show.
Yeah, no, I'm thanking you.
Your thank felt like an attack.
I just want to say also very exciting shirt.
I told you, since you've been making fun of me, I'm going to go full retard with these Hawaiian shirts
Oh,
and these glasses. But back to the topic at hand. When we talk about mass incarceration, what do we really mean? Is it a numerical phenomenon, a racial one, or something else?
I think when we talk about mass incarceration, we're talking about the phenomenon of increased incarceration in the post-civil rights era that started basically with that started with a combination of factors: deindustrialization, the war on drugs, uh, uh, the Great Migration, the last wave of the Great Migration of blacks from the south to the north, and the policies of the Nixon administration, or actually even starting before Nixon, going back to LBJ, to increase mass incarceration as a result of the crime increase rates that were going on, consequently resulting from that great migration and the lack of presence of jobs in those inner city areas where blacks were moving into.
Toussaint? Sorry, that was my bad.
that's okay. Your boy Pusha T is back. He got a new album, fresh new Coke bars for you and your enjoyment. He has his non-twin brother with him.
Mm-hmm.
It's looking good so far. And for all the years he's been rhyming about Coke, it seems like it's not having an effect. It's good to see the rates go down. The YNs are listening to Pusha T and they're like, you know what? I'm not gonna try to live those bars.
Well, I mean, look, while these rates are going down, rappers are killing each other at a rapid rate.
That's true. They're like, let's shift the paradigm a little
Yeah,
bit.
like let's. It's almost like does that feel to you from a cultural standpoint? Does it feel to you guys like this is a generation that's grown up on multiple generations of not just hip hop music, but hip hop movies and hip hop television and
Mhm.
hip hop everything? So this is just their idea of what hip hop is supposed to be.
Oh, don't forget, we're now in the age of Coke rap. We're in an era of Coke TV. From Empire
Snowfall. Yeah.
to the BMF,
Narcos.
Gorilla. What was that? Gorilla Mafia Family, whatever it is.
The BGF. Yeah.
The BGF. All of that stuff. Get get the what's the one that's about the guy from Harlem?
Which guy from Harlem? There's a lot of you people.
No, the major drug kingpin from Harlem.
Oh, the one that Denzel played?
Not him.
The other one, Nicky Barnes?
The mentor of Frank White.
Oh,
Bumpy Knuckles?
Bumpy Johnson.
Bumpy Johnson.
There we go.
Bumpy
Knuckles
Johnson.
is a rapper. Sorry.
Yes, he is.
That's Freddie Fox.
Yeah. So there's this whole there's this glorification of the cocaine narcotics industry, heroin, cocaine, that is proliferating in Black cultural media spaces that is commensurate with the rise of hip hop, that is flushed all through Black cultural production now.
This is a good question from Indingu Kamau. Is this decline primarily happening for Black men, or is it a comprehensive decline for all demographics? All demographics.
Mm-hmm.
We are looking at possibly having, by the end of the decade, less than 1 million people in prison. So it's saying a lot. Do you guys think mass incarceration was an intentional racial project or the result of a confluence of policy decisions with racially desperate outcomes?
I think that mass incarceration was particularly rooted in political economy of the urban area and was driven by a confluence of class, race, and capitalism that had highly racialized results because class and capitalism in America is racialized. Now, there is, of course, I'm sure you've heard the story from the Nixon administration that came out of Nixon's administration where he says that Nixon had two enemies. He had the young people and he had the blacks, and he realized he had to get rid of both of them. So he basically started his policies of mass incarceration to do just that. But in reality, ultimately speaking, though, mass incarceration starts well before the Nixon administration. There's a really good piece that came out in Catalyst that was in, I think it came out about 2 or 3 years ago, maybe 3 years ago. It was written by a guy named Adnan Usami. The economic origins of, you heard of him?
Usmani.
Adnan Usmani, yes. The economic origins of mass incarceration. That's a really good piece. I tried to get it for this show, but it's behind a firewall. And it talks about how the origins of mass incarceration, contrary to the racialized narrative that's popular in the new Jim Crow, stems highly from the economic consequences of deindustrialization and mass incarceration that faces Black populations when they're moving to the north in the last wave of migration, which is really like the 60s. And as a result of that, because there's no work and crime is already starting in those areas, there's a massive crime wave in these communities that starts a wave of mass incarceration. This is before Nixon. So again, it demonstrates that the political economy of inability to find work is a driver of the large amount of these policies.
Tucson, did you want to add anything?
Hmm. That's when you had like the vagrancy laws and they
Yeah.
were arresting dudes for jaywalking, putting them on chain gangs and stuff.
I mean, it's a very different time, right?
Yeah.
Very, very different time of what you could get locked up for. Um, how has the framing of mass incarceration changed over the last 2 decades from like more activist rhetoric to institutional acknowledgement? Do you think it's lost its bite at all?
I think that what happened is that it became so popular to become an anti-carceral activist
Mhm.
after the new Jim Crow that everyone kind of jumped on that bandwagon, and it made it popular to the point where even Trump. I said Bush. Trump became known as an anti-carceral activist at under the behest of Kanye West's ex-wife. What's her name?
Kim
Kim
Kardashian.
Kardashian.
Kim Kardashian.
Well, shout out to her for single handedly lowering the mass incarceration rates. She got them all free. That's great. But I agree. It definitely has been become popular. The answer to say, hey, there's just too many people locked up. We know that the United States had maybe still has the most persons behind bars of any country in the world. Um, I mean, I'd like to see the day when we're not number one in that category. Sounds like we're getting there though,
Of incarcerating our own people.
of incarcerating our own people. But as you sort of implied in the questions and your opener,
Mhm.
um, people may be incarcerated by a different means now.
Yeah, I mean, I think civil detention, which never gets added into these numbers, has really heightened. And I think we talked about this Tuesday, maybe, or one of the days we've talked about it. I know we have that. That's kind of why you're seeing these massive roundups of migrants with a goal of 1 million a year. It's a pretty high number if you think about it, and that would dwarf any numbers that we had in a 1 year's time,
Hmm.
even at the height of mass incarceration.
Hmm. I think the ICE raids and immigration detention centers are also mass incarceration by a different name.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it's an extension of the project.
I think there's a higher rate of private prison
Is
ownership.
Pascal still there?
Yes, he's still there.
Oh,
I think there's a higher rate of private prison ownership in the detention centers than they are in the regular prisons. Is that correct, Jason?
Yes, yes. In the civil detention centers for migrants. Oh yeah,
Yes.
yeah. That's where private prison ownership is. That was kind of like the I wouldn't say the sleight of hand in the book, because Michelle Alexander does say that she's not going to talk about brown people and she's not going to talk about civil detention because it is something very different.
mhm,
Um, but by leaving that out, it really did open up the door for most people to believe that private prisons were what was driving mass incarceration, and it was simply a race issue. And that's when you get things like these fake stories of a hip hop pivot from more Afrocentric and nationalist content to hood music,
mhm.
which just isn't true. Like the whole uh the president of a private prison sat down with record label owners and said, "I need you to make more hip hop." Like that is not true whatsoever.
Oh, like the birth of gangster rap came about.
Yeah, yeah. When you make this music, more people go to prison. I mean, your point makes you make a great point, Toussaint. You know, there's a new Clips record out, and it's
Mhm.
not like kids are buying kilos of cocaine to cook it.
Nope.
It's a silly idea, but I think people really like that theory that there's these unseen hands of white supremacy pulling all the strings.
Wasn't there that letter? There was one that had to do with a pivot to R&B in the music industry.
To R&B
Yeah.
or away from
Um
R&B?
I'm not sure. There was also one that had to do with TV, right? Let's have more black people on TV.
Kerner Commission.
The Kerner Commission, but I believe
Mm.
there was one that had to do with the music industry as well. Um, yeah, these conspiracy theories abound. You would think no one would be talking about the Willie Lynch letter in 2025, but
That
I
was
was remember when that shit hit. Oh my god. Oh,
yep.
don't say that's like Candyman too. Don't say that 3 times fast. Fuck.
People have so much belief in that. It's like a church.
Willie Lynch and QAnon and the Satanic Panic are in the Venn diagram for me.
There we go.
They're
Yeah.
all
Yeah.
they all meet. Boys in the Hood, Menace to Society. How did films like that shape public perception of black communities and criminality? And was that representation authentic or manipulated?
Oh, I mean, I think there was definitely a level of manipulation. I mean, not that there weren't areas of the inner city that were not affected by the blight of drugs and narcotics and gang warfare, but at the same time, those were dramatic renditions for the purposes of market share. But that doesn't mean that that kind of depiction didn't have an effect on the conversations about what was happening in the inner cities, in the hallowed halls of governance throughout the United States, where stories about South Central abound.
Mm-hmm.
Toussaint. So when you were double dutching and dodging bullets from Alpo and what's the other guy's name?
It's mainly Alpo. I think I lived in Alpo territory.
Fat Fat Cat was in it.
Fat Cat and
Okay.
Alpo. When
Yep.
you and Pascal were dodging bullets from Fat Cat and Alpo, that wasn't your life in New York.
Um, no.
You weren't on the L train trying to not get robbed.
Tucson was a good little Catholic schoolgirl in Jamaica, Queens.
Well, wasn't she getting robbed on the L train?
I'm getting robbed.
Train. She was going on Catholic school buses.
You know what? Not gonna lie, when I got older, they took us off the school bus and we had to take the city buses. I remember one day I was on the bus with my girl and we was by some public schoolers. They decided to sit in the back too. And it got a little tense. She had this thing called a magic diary because we were little girls. And this guy goes over to her and he's like, "Give me your magic diary." That was like crime for us. It wasn't necessarily at our houses where we were like dodging bullets in the yard, but if we went out and did things, then yeah, crime was
Oh
there.
no, I definitely dodged some bullets. I definitely had the bullets. I lived the bullet life.
There were
Did,
bullets. There were crack vials at our bus stop. I remember that. Crack vials and condoms.
it's all
Yeah, crack
Pascal. He was
vials,
leaving for you.
crack vials in Rosedale by your school.
Yeah, for sure.
Pascal said the drug dealers were leaving in there like Hansel and Gretel.
Like breadcrumbs.
Like, how we's gonna get back? Leave a little crack behind.
So stupid. Well, I think those movies definitely shaped an idea of a YN before we were calling them YNs. Just an idea of what a young black hoodlum was like. And it seemed like particularly in rap, people were always trying to get a more realistic depiction, but it was still really cartoonish. I actually came across um a
Hawaiian.
study. No, not a YN. They're literally everywhere in my neighborhood. If you hear fireworks today on the July 17th, it's them. Um, But I came across a study because of all this news about Mamdani and Brad Lander and the race for mayor in New York. There's all this talk of all of this anti-Semitism, and people are trying to figure out how much purchase it has with the average person. So apparently, in the United States, most people have never actually met a Jewish person in their lives. And to
Wow.
me, I'm just like, having lived in the city my whole life, that is outrageous. So surely there are people who have never met a YN in their lives. And these images and this music help to shape what people thought that kind of person was. And for a lot of people, their immediate reaction was, you know what, lock them up. That's what our former president Biden said when he was trying to get the omnibus bill passed. These
Mhm.
people are super predators. That's what Hillary Clinton said too. They ain't got no fathers and they're just killers. They cannot be redeemed. Just put them in a cage. And that seems to be a go-to for a lot of liberals. Just whatever this problem is, get it out of my sight. And that's where you get the idea of even in alligator Alcatraz, you can still see it now. Put people on an island
Yeah.
and put them in a box and get them out of my sight. Make this no longer a problem for me.
There's also this feeling that if you did a crime, you don't deserve humanity.
Hmm.
Um, there's been a few super tough wardens and sheriffs. Joe Arpaio, maybe the most famously, because I think he even had a reality show where
Mm,
he would put people. He had an outdoor prison in Arizona. I don't know how much time you guys have ever spent in Arizona. It's disgustingly hot for the
hmm.
majority of the year. And then they have a monsoon season that is in fucking sane.
Mm,
And to leave people outside in those conditions wearing old school prison uniforms, excuse me, and he made them pink. He's a real kind of turd. And there's other wardens
right.
that like give the prisoners food that's not really suitable for human consumption. Because fighting for, and we're going to talk about this Saturday, fighting for the rights of the incarcerated for a lot of people is like the super liberal cause. Even people that watch shows like this, there's not really a lot of talk about what goes on inside of a prison in the day to day,
Hmm.
because people don't really care.
Mm-mm.
Um, and as we realize that we destroyed communities with mass incarceration, and you see these rates dropping so rapidly, and there's been a lot of changes as well. I think one thing that no one is writing about is that drug use is a little different now. There's a lot more pharmaceutical drugs people are using.
Hmm.
Granted, it's still criminal if you're caught with it on your person or if you steal a prescription, but those crimes are a lot different than how we viewed crack possession 30
Hmm.
years ago,
Right.
because people aren't shooting each other over fentanyl territory. Because who's going to shoot up the CVS? Who's going to shoot up the Walgreens?
Mm,
So uh, I think that, major corporations controlling the drug game, I think that is part of it as well. I don't know if you guys feel the same way.
Oh, absolutely, man. OxyContin, Oxy is not crack.
No,
Fentanyl is not, heroin.
no.
So it becomes a different monster altogether. The face of the drug, and the face of the drug crime is not the same as the age of the cocaine cowboys.
Mm-hmm.
mm,
It's so different. The things we've talked about it on the show. I've definitely written about it. There's a video essay at Means TV you can watch where I talk about it. The amount of money people were making and how gangs had kind of a distribution system built into just having a gang. you understand why recruitment was so important, and you understand why things were so violent. I mean, you can't call the cops. You can't sue. You're not going to tie up a rival gang in litigation over hostile takeovers, quote unquote.
Mhm.
Right.
So it really was the Wild West during that time. That time
Well,
is gone. Gangs still exist, but not to the level that they did before.
mhm.
I was just in San Francisco visiting family, and you can wear any color you want. You can go to LA, wear all the red you want, all the blue you want. Nobody's gonna do anything. You have to be in like the right neighborhood.
Hmm.
This ain't 1986 anymore, where people are getting randomly shot in Westwood. I can't speak for New York. Does it feel different for you in 2025 than it did as a young girl with those little plastic things on the end of your braids?
First of all, we don't color bang. Um, I mean, in the late '90s, that stuff started to come to New York City through the prison system. I remember they used to be like whole blood families on Jamaica Avenue. And it was an issue if you were wearing red, sometimes blue, but the color bang never really caught on. People had New York pride a little bit and were like, that's a Cali thing. We really don't do that out here.
Good for them.
Yeah. Well, I'll say also, crack had some really understatement of the year, interesting PR. Um, it was considered, I don't the big bad.
Yeah.
It was this drug is so terrible that it's not just men doing it, it's women doing it. And the women that are doing it are mothers. They're having crack babies that are born sick and underweight, and they're abandoning their families. They just want this crack. And the face of crack was made to be a black mother, I guess a poor black mother,
Yeah.
which was not something that we had seen with other drugs before.
Heroin a little bit, but heroin didn't have the PR, to your point, that crack
Hmm.
had, because crack had CIA PR. It was like,
Hmm.
these babies are being born addicted to crack. I mean, I wish we could pull up a video, but they'll pull the stream down. There's a lot of news footage. I've watched it of these news stories that were like national news stories, not local. These were national news stories on the three networks saying that if your baby is born addicted to crack, its chances of survival are slim. But if it does survive, it's going to be a low functioning, hyper violent child.
Hmm.
So that was another thing that these kids were getting, or us kids, I should say, to were getting labeled
Hmm.
with. We're crack babies. That was an insult. That was a
Yes.
pejorative.
A lot of
Yes.
that science was subsequently debunked, by the
Oh,
way.
definitely.
Hmm.
It didn't matter though. The that genie was out of the bottle, and it was infectious. And I think it leads to, again, where we're back to today. Another reason why I wanted to do this show is because as these rates are dropping, there's like a couple things I wanted to say. Number one, uh, if, and I'll ask this question again, if racism is the engine driving the mass incarceration machine, and these numbers are literally falling off of a cliff, does that mean that racism is over, or that maybe racism wasn't the main factor?
Well, first of all, I never conceded that racism was the main factor behind the mass incarceration. I always told you it was in political economy. That's the first thing. So
Mhm.
I never made that argument. So I think that it's part of the problem with making the argument that, oh, it's racism, it's racism, it's racism, is that it takes away from the reality that like capitalism oftentimes does the work of racism purely by the nature of the fact that it requires a surplus redundant labor source, which is largely going to be black people. And one of the realities of that is that it racializes an underclass that is going to be economically on the outs because of the way the system functions. And you don't necessarily have to have a racial conspiracy to explain why they're disproportionately affected adversely by capitalism.
Tucson, did you want to add anything to that?
I think that Michelle Alexander's book, The New Jim Crow, definitely helped push the conversation of mass incarceration along. However, there are a lot of problems with the book, and those problems are still present in the discourse today. I mean, the idea that racism was driving mass incarceration rates are dropping, therefore racism is over, is the kind of equation that you can draw if you read that book.
Well, that
Also,
that was the
another
joke.
problem with that book is that it fails to make the acknowledgement that one of the reasons why mass incarceration was going up was because violent crime was on the rise for those communities, not simple drug arrests. The
Mm.
majority of people who are in prison are not in prison because of drug arrests. They're in prison because of violent related crimes.
That is correct. Them niggas did it.
Mm. Bobby Schmurda's free now. He taking pictures in front of murals of his face
Jesus
with fans.
Son,
We had to do that.
You follow the hip hop news.
So
It was a big deal when he was freed. I mean, I mentioned Boskar doing the Schmurda dance. If enough people hit like when I was doing moderation,
You saw Boskar doing the Bobby Schmurda dance?
I promised people he would if we hit a certain number of likes on the stream when I was moderating the Jacobin stream. And then somebody hopped in the chat and was like, "Don't you be talking about Bobby Schmurda? That man been through so much." And I was just like, "In the Jacobin stream? Where are you coming from with this?" He's a sacred cow for a lot of people.
I wouldn't know him if he bit me in the butt.
Bobby Schmurda?
Schmurda, yeah.
Yeah.
Sign of the times, he's free now.
Yeah,
I don't know him. Is he one of the Schmurda
Bobby
boys?
Schmurda
He's one of the Schmurda boys from both the.
He's
one of the Schmurda boys from Yonkers.
You need to watch Trap Lore Ross so he can give you all the lore.
Whatever you're saying right now, it sounds like when people speak Spanish to me too fast.
I know Vlad like you.
Yeah.
That's what it sounds like.
Did I send you, Pascal? Speaking of Tucson's funny Cuban voice, did I see the video of those Cuban women talking about how all Cubans need to go get a black man?
Oh, no. Wow. There's plenty of black Cubans.
No, they said get you an African American.
I get the appeal.
They said it in English and in Spanish. They were older Cuban women. And they were campaigning for Pascal to come out of retirement.
They said, "We coming for you, nigga."
Yeah.
Coming for Pascal.
Tanya Marshall says black women need to stop having all these kids end up in jail. What's funny is if you talk about why, another reason why these rates are going down, young people are not engaging in risky behavior anymore. As much.
Yeah.
Single parent childhood for black women have been going down for years.
Oh, dude, kids aren't having kids.
Mm-hmm.
Kids aren't having teenage pregnancy is down.
Yeah.
And that's saying a lot. There's been a slight uptick in the last few years because of these abortion bans.
Mm.
But if you look on like a 20-year. Oh man, dropping.
See, gone are the days of guys like Jason having babies young and going to high school with their own kids.
Shooting up the
That's what you said as soon
shooting
as
up
you
the
fucking
club.
strapped up today, huh?
Are you cheating on the math test off your daughter?
I would not because I want to pass it. Yeah, see, the kids aren't drinking, the kids aren't banging. What's the point of being a kid anymore? They have virtual everything. They can rent a girlfriend or a boyfriend. How bipartisan was the 1994 crime bill really? And who bears more responsibility? Those who wrote it, those who voted for it, or those who never opposed it publicly?
Well, we have to remember that mass incarceration in the post civil rights era was a bipartisan reality. Starts with Nixon, continues with Reagan, and ends up with Clinton. So the night in terms of the '94 version, it was, it didn't take much to convince the Republicans, who already had two of their own versions, to jump on as well. But it was mostly driven by the neoliberal Clintonite third wave Democrats who didn't want to seem soft on crime because they had been tagged in the '88 election of where George Bush the father
Mhm.
beat what was his name from Massachusetts?
Um, oh, don't tell me. Michael Dukakis?
Dukakis,
Mhm.
right?
Yes.
Because you guys remember the commercial with Dukakis?
Willie
Dukakis got the
Willie Horton.
Willie Horton.
Yeah.
No, Willie Horton was that Clinton?
Nope, that was Dukakis.
Okay, yeah.
Hmm.
Yep, that was Dukakis.
Dukakis got left with his, got literally got caught out there because of a policy he had in terms of incarceration as governor. So the Democrats didn't want to be known as soft on crime. And part of the pivot of the DLC leadership that corporatized the Democratic Party from '88 onwards was to take a tough on crime posture.
Tucson, do you want to add something to that?
They still have that tough on crime posture. You can see it in the New York City mayoral race.
Mm,
They don't like some of Mom Donnie's policies, and one of the reasons is whenever Democrats manage to get, elected in a primary, they're expected to then move to the right, become more Republican, and one of those ways is by being tough on crime. So your boy Cuomo, who did not win the Democratic primary, is still running as an independent. But
yeah.
one of the things he's doing is offering tough on crime sort of rhetoric, and Zoran did call him out in a way that I really enjoyed. He said that Cuomo talks about New York City as if he's living in the suburbs. True
Ooh.
indeed, Cuomo does not live in New York City. I believe he's in Westchester.
Ooh.
And people who live around the city often talk about the city like it's the most dangerous place in the world. I
Yeah.
guess because we have a lot of YNs. And YNs have bad press. We have YLs too. So he definitely does talk about the city as if he's not from here, because the feeling walking down the street is not that you're going to get mugged anytime you turn the corner. That's not how it feels when you actually live here. But that perception for people who don't live in the city, it prevails.
How do we get beyond that perception? Or is it too baked in to the political discourse at this point? I mean, even shows like this, I think, don't really talk about what you're discussing, which is kind of how everyday people understand a city, because so many people do live in the suburbs.
Hmm. And they don't know any Jews. Somebody said, um, somebody said
Take them to Williamsburg.
they don't think they know any Jews. We don't all walk around wearing yarmulkes, and I think that's true. Um,
But they
that's what
all
the
walk around with that attitude.
Oh, it's those damn YJs. Those Ben Burgesses walking around with their doctorates trying to debate people.
Yeah, who's into more debate bro shit? Black people or Jews? Come on, let's be honest here. They're not calling for Cornell West.
He'll debate if you want, though.
Somebody said, "Uh-oh, Jason." Drea said, "For weeks they'd say YNs on the show. I kept wondering what lions were."
That's so cute.
Well, I told you I had that meeting at Means, and somebody said they were bringing in a YN. And I said, "I'm sorry," and they said, "A Hawaiian."
Ah.
Yeah, that was my bad. That was my O in ears.
There you go. There you go.
If the prison population is decreasing, does that mean the system is working? Or has the logic of mass incarceration just evolved into other forms, i.e., surveillance, parole, probation, and also parole and probation is down as well.
Hmm.
But is the system working, Pascal?
I don't think we would ever say the system is working. We have too many people who are incarcerated still. And I think that the brutality of mass incarceration and the prison system is such that it's so devastating to people's psyche to even experience it that to assume that the system is working is ridiculous. Not to sound like some kind of prison abolitionist, but I think that we need to talk about ways of reforming our ways of punishment in this country in a way that we give people alternative ways to redeem themselves after they've been charged with crimes.
Does this lens, though, this framing of everything being anti-black, when you see these numbers, does it really show the folly of that thinking, or do you think that thinking is just so ingrained in these people for a plethora of reasons? Part of
Yeah,
it being career advancement, that they just can't see beyond it.
the Afro pessimist got an Afro pessimist.
Oof.
Mm.
What say you, uh,
Yeah.
Meredith Torkelson?
I That's definitely been the narrative for a long time that this is as KRS once said, this is a linear progression from the plantation, overseer, officer, 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 how he morphs the word overseer into officer. And so that's very much an Afro pessimism narrative. It also doesn't involve class. They're not rounding up, black people at Cape Cod. They also not rounding up old people at the old folks' home. This was targeted at young people. Um, I think that we've seen the discourse be affected by abolitionist and activist language. Defund the police is a very mainstream phrase. A lot of people who wouldn't say it now were saying it just a couple years ago.
Yeah.
And the idea that something like that would be so mainstream seems so far off in the 90s when we were talking about crack babies. So definitely the language has changed around this, and people are rethinking mass incarceration. I mean, it's going to take a while. We're not going to turn into Norway overnight.
But
One
are
thing I
we?
find interesting about prison in Norway,
Mhm.
besides the fact that they be having jail cells that look like nicer apartments than you could find in New York City, um, one of the things they do to discourage recidivism is if you're married and you have kids, they let you have overnight visits with your wife and kids. Surely some people would be put in a very dangerous position visiting their loved one in that way overnight. But for a lot of people, that would help to sensitize them and help to get them reintegrated back into society in a healthier way. I hope that we can start exploring things like that. I've actually had conversations with nuns where they have told me that they have looked into buying prisons. They wanted to do nice things with it. You know, these are nice liberal nuns, and they thought maybe they should get into this fight. If there are private prisons to be had, maybe the Catholic Church should get into buying some. Turns out you're not allowed to do that.
They
and
didn't do a great job in Ireland when they were running
mm,
orphanages.
no, they didn't. But these might be different nuns. These might be different nuns. I would say they told me that you are not allowed to do certain reformist activities when you own a prison. So they would have bought it to put into the reforms, but they weren't going to be allowed to do those anyway. So they don't buy them.
I think I'll say it again. I don't see us seeing a certain segment of society as human
Right.
that deserves a chance. I think if people have mental, we're going to watch a documentary Monday about a singer that has been an inspiration for me from the first time I saw him, HR from the Bad Brains. That man has severe mental problems. And they kind of skate over it in the documentary. You know, again, when you're a famous person like him, where you're more famous than wealthy, people are going to give you a place to stay and get you really high. That's probably not what you need when you have severe mental problems.
Hmm.
Um, and you can see how it kind of destroyed him, and how, you know, had he not been HR, the Bad Brains, people would have written him off. He's still a commodity, right? Like, hey, we get this guy's meds right. We can at least get some reggae shows out of him. Um, when you're not a commodity anymore, then, you know, you're just broken and you're never going to be fixed. It's too much work. We don't want to deal with it. So, you know, you get put out to pasture. Um, we're not really locking up homeless people as much now. There's a slight start to throw more people into forced rehab. I think that's the other way incarceration is going to look. But I don't know how long people want to even do that. I don't know if that's going to get the votes.
I don't want my tax dollars going towards that. I want these cops out in the street beating up hippies, and I want these junkies locked up. I don't want them breaking into my car and stealing my music off my laptop. I'm Beyonce.
You don't
I'm
have
be-
a car. You don't have a car.
I'm Beyonce. They stole my laptop.
You're
Lock them up.
Beyonce. You're
Lock them up.
Beyonce.
They stole the laptop that the job gave me. Not the good one I bought, but the one the job gave me. Lock them up.
There you go. I think, okay, a little bit of therapy speak.
Mhm.
It's certainly not exclusive to the United States, but the American liberal, the American needs to do some shadow work. Uh, Looking at the negative sides of their own personalities instead of sort of trying to split it off and project it onto these other people who are often poor, and say, I don't want to see this. I don't want to see this part of myself. I don't want to see this part of society. Just lock these people up. You can definitely see it in the United States history when people had the ideas about eugenics were very popular.
Yes.
They were crazy about, poor choice of words. They were very into locking up people that they felt were defective in some way, which included poor people just for being poor. It also included a lot of white folks. You can see it in what, To Kill a Mockingbird. Uh, just that was a major project, and that's something that, this culture really needs to reckon with. You can't do that. You can't. You'll have uprisings like what, Attica, or was it Alcatraz?
Attica.
They're Attica. There were prison uprisings because
There's a
there
lot.
were also uprisings during COVID. You can't just pretend that you put people in a box and they don't exist anymore. It's not a thing.
It's not, but I think that's phase one into the euthanization of the poor. Put them in the box first.
Yeah.
And then when that doesn't work, just give them the option.
So when I was very into environmentalism, I learned that there was a patch of garbage in the Pacific the size of Texas.
Mhm.
And it's very interesting because you think of Texas and you think of a land mass, but this is the ocean. So it's just like a huge patch of garbage in water kind of floating around separate as toothbrushes and bottles and stuff. And for the most part, nobody's doing anything about it. It's just kind of existing there. But it gets there because there's an idea in this culture that if you don't like something, you can throw it in the water. I feel like you can see that in the Boston Tea Party. There was a relationship with the settlers that there was a lot to be gained from this land, and there was so much abundance that there was stuff that was disposable. And they cut down all these trees and they threw stuff in the water like it was nothing. It all comes back to you. Anything you throw in the water comes back to you. It ends up on your plate. But people don't think like that. And I think in this century going forward, people are going to have to start thinking more holistically, especially as climate change is really, really rearing up. You see the floods in Texas. There was
Mhm.
recently massive flash floods in New York City, and the subways were flooded. And the thing is, with these storms in New York City, I just want to point out these storms don't have names. They just come and there's massive flooding. They do a lot of destruction, but they don't even rise to the level of storms that have names. This is going to become more common. So we're going to have to start thinking differently. And I think that we're going to start rethinking prison. I think that's going to be on the table.
Rethinking it in what way? Not locking as many people up?
Not locking as many people up, not having sentences that are as long. In New York City, one of the things that's being discussed is finally closing down Rikers Island.
Mhm.
Rikers Island is
It's a
a
holding
jail.
facility. Yeah.
It's a jail on an island. There's only one way in, and there's only one way out. It's terrifying in there. It's so bad in there that people yearn for prison. And prison is a much easier ride once you finally get out of Rikers. So I think yes, it's definitely on the table, especially as more leftists are surfacing and taking office. Certainly Zoran is inspiring a lot of people, and it's going to become a discussion. How can we do this better?
Again, I think I found the liberal solution and I don't like it. And I wrote about it in the crisis papers. If you're a patron, you can read it because
Oh,
I see a running man type future. We're seeing that right now with a lot of these games, game shows. Mr. Beast has a running man like game show. Um, the rest of the world is euthanizing addicted and poor people. And it's quote unquote their choice. And as we're seeing the failure, I'll say it again, the failure of harm reduction, we're one track mind people. It's always a one size fits all solution. I don't say this because I want it to happen. I say this because this is the trajectory that I'm seeing, and I'm looking at other parts of the world that feel very comfortable doing this. And no one is, I've only seen one person in our universe talk about this, and that's Ashley Frowley. Because
Talking about that.
ultimately, nobody cares about poor people.
About mass incarceration?
All of it. Mass incarceration, homelessness. It's so overwhelming. I was just in San Francisco and I took a wrong turn. Fred and I were walking somewhere, we're trying to get somewhere, and we went a very long way. We were being reminiscent of our youth in the city, and we're like, oh shit, we could have just walked this other way and
Mhm.
avoided all this fuckery. And we walked like right in the heart of all the shit. And it's just overwhelming, dude. It's overwhelming. Blocks upon blocks of people just covered in their own filth, fighting over dope, smoking meth in front of you, tying off, shooting in their feet in front of you, fighting with their old lady in front of you. Is that guy dead or just nodded off?
Mhm.
It's overwhelming. Even if you have a good heart and care, if you don't really work in services, you'll I gave all I had, on the first block, and I got to get 10 more blocks to get to my destination. My empathy is going to be expired by the time I get halfway there. That's how a lot of people are.
I can understand that. I've been going over in my mind two different unhoused persons in my neighborhood. Actually, three. One was a white girl, and I just wanted to tell her to go home. Whatever it is, just don't be here. There's another guy that every time I go down this block, he is suddenly like ready to shoot up.
Mm-hmm.
He always fakes like he's gonna do it in his groin, and then he switches to his arm. The last time I saw him, he wasn't just on the stoop. He wasn't just on the sidewalk. He was in the little square of dirt where the trees are.
Mm-hmm.
There'll be like one tree in that square on the sidewalk. He was sitting in that and shooting up. And I'm like, how is it possible? Every time I come down this block, this man is doing the exact same thing as if he knows I'm going to be here. And I came across the idea that there are people, when surveyed in cities, will say that the crime rate is crazy, no matter what the actual crime rate is.
Mm-hmm.
And somebody figured out that one of the things that people were trying to express was that they don't like seeing the visible poverty.
Yes.
But they don't
Yes.
really have the vocabulary for that because we haven't moved that direction yet. They know how to say crime is up. They don't know how to say, I don't like seeing all of this homelessness
That's how
everywhere I go.
that's how Chesa Boudin got voted out of office, because he got blamed for the visual reality of the failures of capitalism and the brutality of said system.
Mhm.
When you see all these people strung out and addicted, and it just feels like it's growing, they're sleeping in doorways of businesses. So business owners do not like the unhoused
Mhm.
at all. At all. So, is America addicted to punishment? And if so, who pays the highest price, Pascal?
I think America is definitely addicted to punishment. And I think that the people who pay the price are the people who are at the bottom end of capitalism, which is working class people, brown, poor working class white people, communities of color, white folk who are born working class, people with disabilities.
Oh yeah. Again, no value. Toussaint, what say you?
I think it's important for people to protect their psyches Not to be that guy, but to be that guy. I mean, we know capitalism is a barbaric system,
Mhm.
but you can't. I think a lot of people can't admit that to themselves, and so they have this idea given to them that, well, these people are just lazy.
Mhm.
You hear that a lot. Well, Gen Z is just lazy. All these unhoused people are just lazy,
Mhm.
without addressing any of the complications or impediments to them getting their lives on a different track. You have that easy answer. Well, I work hard, and that didn't happen to me. And you have a lot of capitalists who are using these unhoused people to remind their employees that could be you if you don't act right.
I'm glad this didn't come up on the show Tuesday.
Oh, oh, hey,
His
why
head
you didn't
would
invite me?
his head would have exploded.
People are very protective of capitalism, and we know they can't imagine anything else. So they would sooner imagine the end of the world, we know, but they would also sooner imagine death for everyone.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure you guys watching the show have some opinions about what we've discussed today. Maybe you disagree. Maybe you agree. But whatever you have to say, we want to read it. We often do read it.
Hmm.
Sometimes you get a response. I will mark my name down if I respond. So you know it's fucking me responding.
I'll reply from my own account.
That's not true. She replies from the show account.
No, well, I don't reply from this show account very much. But yeah, I love, love, love reading the comments.
There's people that have been writing some novels in there recently.
I mean, yeah, as long as the novel is relevant.
I'm all for the novel comment.
Mhm.
I'm all for the novel comment. Thank you guys for checking it out. If you're new here or returning subscriber, don't forget to hit like, subscribe if you haven't. I think it's like 40% of the people watching this show are not subscribers. If you're listening on Apple, subscribe and then you can get access to the champagne room, which is where we're going in just a second. If you have the means, enjoy this show and want to make sure we can continue to do these types of shows, then become a patron. Again, for as little as $3 a month or $30 for the year, you can have access to the patron-only champagne rooms. Join us for movie nights, which we will be doing tomorrow. We'll be watching Empire Strikes Back.
Mhm. Are you the Empire or are you striking back?
I'm doing both.
Hey,
Take that.
this is revolution.
And on that note, we are
Out.
Out.
peace.